The number of people in the labor force rose to 48.61 million in February. That's high by over 2.6 million from January. But national statistician Dennis Mapa says not everyone got jobs.
Ibig sabihin, ito sila naghanap ng trabaho pero hindi sila nakakuha ng trabaho na gusto nila. So sa datos natin, yung looking for work na unemployed ay tumaas mula 1.16 million noong January sa tumaas ito hanggang 1.94 million noong February.
The National Economic and Development Authority welcomes the latest figures. It also emphasizes the importance of bringing back face-to-face classes in areas under Alert Level 1. A labor group is asking for another increase in the daily minimum wage, this time in the Caraga region and no longer across the board. The Trade Union Congress of the Philippines filed a petition today before the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board for an additional 425 pesos to the current daily rate of 320 pesos. The Labor Department on Tuesday said the group also filed a fresh petition for a minimum wage hike in Metro Manila after its earlier request for an across-the-board 470 pesos salary hike was rejected. The group requested an increase to help workers cope with the rising cost of fuel and basic goods. The department says a fresh appeal may be considered during the next Regional Wage Board meeting. No fuel subsidy payouts just yet, despite the Commission on Elections' go signal for transport regulators to resume the rollout. The LTFRB says it is still waiting for COMEX's formal response to its appeal. The poll body exempted the program from the election ban on public spending, but COMEX has yet to issue a resolution which will contain strict conditions the LTFRB has to comply with. The Stop and Go Transport Coalition welcomes the development, but again calls on the government to fast-track the distribution of fuel subsidy, as well as allow jeepney drivers to increase the minimum fare. Among LTFRB franchise holders, less than half have received the 6,500 pesos in their Pantawid Pasada cards. The Interior Department, meanwhile, says it has a partial list of tricycle drivers eligible for the aid, but the LTFRB says it has yet to receive any list.
Mali yung sinasabi ng LTFRB na wala kayong sinabit na listahan.
Continuing to, patuloy yung the USEC in charge here is USEC evidencing.
Okay.
At tuloy-tuloy yung kanilang pagko-coordinate with the LTFRB. So, more likely kapag mukha natin makuha yung permission pagka payoff nito, kumpleto na itong listahan.
The subsidy rollout is expected to cushion the impact of hefty fuel prices on PV drivers and operators. Election updates now. COMEX now verifying the areas of concern identified by the Philippine National Police. The PNP listed 105 towns and 15 cities based on their history of violence, political rivalry, and the presence of private armed groups.
We hope that within the week, or within what's left of the week, we will be able to release the final list of areas under concern. We respect the findings of the PNP, and we believe that yes, there is basis for their findings. It's just that we have to cross-check with our people on the ground regarding the situation. Also, to decide what the appropriate response of the Commission will be.
The PNP filed charges against the mayor and vice mayor of the town of Pilar in Abra province, as well as 3 others. Mayor Maro Somera and Vice Mayor Jaja Josefina Somera Disono were charged with violation of the Expanded Trafficking in Persons Act over the shootout between police and Disono's armed personnel who refused to stop at a checkpoint late last month. 2 local government personnel and 1 of Disono's household help face 1 charge of serious disobedience to an agent of a person in authority, while the helper was charged with attempted murder. The DILG also asked at least 63 local officials to explain election violations they supposedly committed, including vote buying, but there is no formal complaint yet. Meanwhile, 25,000 people were either caught not wearing face masks or observing physical distancing from April 1 to 4. The PNP has yet to clarify whether the incidents happened during campaigns. It's also unclear whether there were politicians or organizers penalized.
Pag ginawa natin yung general rule na yan na lahat mananagot ng kandidato, wala nang matitirang kandidato sa Pilipinas. Kasi nga, campaign period ngayon. Ano? That is why we go to specifics, kung sino yung violators, kunin natin, kung merong specific violations yung kandidato, then we investigate or prosecute him.
Pulse Asia says significant developments could still alter the results of its next voter preference survey. Presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos maintained his lead in the March survey, but dropped by 4 points to 56%. Voter preference for his closest rival, Vice President Leni Robredo, jumped from 15% to 24%. For Pulse Asia President Ronald Holmes, the 9% increase is significant, but says Robredo would still need to win more votes in Mindanao to boost her chances. But he also says that Marcos's lead is unprecedented since past candidates never got more than 50% of voter preference. Holmes notes an improved messaging on the platforms of candidates could turn things around.
In 2016, in the same survey we conducted in March, pumapangalawa na si dating Mayor Rodrigo Duterte na bilang kandidato sa pagkapangulo. Ibig sabihin nito ay malaki pang potensyal na magbago sa Abril dahil marami pa ang maaaring kaganapan at mayroong mga kaganapan na talagang sa sobrang makabuluhan, maaaring ito yung magdulot ng paglipat o pagbabago ng boto ng mga botanteng Pilipino.
Then presidential candidate Rodrigo Duterte overtook his rival, Senator Grace Poe, by 5 points in the Pulse Asia voter preference survey held from late March to early April of 2016. The vice presidential survey held in the same period shows Marcos leading the pack with 6 points away from Robredo. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno congratulates the frontrunners of the latest Pulse Asia survey as he insists he's unfazed by his lower numbers. Moreno's voter preference dipped from 10 to 8%.
Congratulations to them. Yung sinabi ng survey, I would like to congratulate them. I'm happy for them. Ano pa rin, diretso sa tao. Kami ang pupunta sa tao. It's always like that. I've been doing that since 1998, 2001, 2004, 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019. Ganun din ang gagawin. Basic. Okay. Straightforward. Hindi magarbo, hindi magastos na kampanya.
Labor leader Caliotti de Guzman also brushing off the results of the survey, where he ranked second to the last with less than 1%. He claims that politicians pay the people behind voter preference surveys to monitor their strongest opponents. But he notes that he will double, even triple his efforts to reach out to the public. The Labor leader is now proposing the use of taxpayers' money to fund the campaigns of candidates and to tap state media to level the playing field.
Yung pagpapakilala sa kandidato, ang gagawa, gobyerno, using yung kanyang TV station, Channel 4, Channel 13, kung ano man, para equal ang playing field at hindi mangyari na si Caliotti, na galing sa sektor, ay hindi kayang maglagay ng paid ad sa TV dahil wala na siyang pera. Pero kung may equal opportunity na binibigay ang ating gobyerno, equal lang.
Leni Robredo stands with her volunteers accused of having ties to communist rebels. The vice president insists she will never ally herself with anyone who uses violence to promote an agenda. She says the red tagging and attacks against volunteers started when her campaign began to gain traction. Senator Ping Lacson supports calls to remove the 20% tax from the honoraria of teachers rendering election duty. He says there is no time to lose for agencies who should act on the matter. The Alliance of Concerned Teachers trooped the COMELEC headquarters Wednesday, demanding a dialogue over the issue. Children are among the most vulnerable sectors of society, more so orphans. What can the next administration do to help them? In this report, Carolyn Bonkin takes us to an orphanage in Maguindanao.
This is the IHH Orphanage Center in Cotabato City, one of the institutions caring for children in Mindanao who either lost their father or both parents. Mainly with the help of Turkish donors, they are provided with food, clothing, shelter, and medication. They also go to a nearby public school.
We want the orphans studying because orphans family, generally poor family.
This is where we met Lama. Anong pangarap mo?
Pangarap ko pong maging nurse. Gusto ko pong tulungan yung mga ibang tao.
But it's a far-off dream for now. Mafodsa, one of the social workers, says they could only afford to send children to public schools, and they can only choose from limited courses.
Yung ibang orphans namin gusto nila ng ibang mas mataas na course, pero hindi namin mabigay yun sa kanila dahil doon sa budget, naka-budget lang yung para sa kanila.
Lama's hope is to find a sponsor or a scholarship grant. The Philippine Orphanage Foundation says there are around 2 million orphans in the country. Mafodsa hopes the government could allot funds to send all orphans to the university and help them pursue their dream career. Mafodsa also grew up in the orphanage. Now she's caring for 99 teenage girls. She says half of the children here lost at least one parent in different wars in Mindanao and are left with emotional wounds. She took psychology to help them cope, but Mafodsa says children in other orphanages don't get regular psychosocial interventions. These are not the only concerns. We met Abdul Shatar and Hania, regular volunteers in different orphanages in the region. They say other institutions have no steady food and hygiene supplies.
Hindi kasi may iwasan na merong shortage. Kasi nga itong karamihan sa mga orphanage centers na meron tayo ay nakadepende ito sa mga sponsors from international.
A study on the children of war says there are no DSWD-accredited orphanages or shelters in the Bangsamoro region, nor dedicated national programs for war orphans. Without guidance, they run the risk of getting recruited by violent extremist groups.
Kaya malaking tulong din na nakakastay sa mga orphanage yung mga orphans kasi at least may supervision ng mga mudir.
Abdul Shatar says caring for the orphans should be part of the peace process in Mindanao.
Hindi lang dapat ang nire-rehab natin ay yung mga infrastructures, kundi pati mismo yung mga tao na apektado nito.
Now filed before the BARM Parliament is the Bangsamoro Orphanage Act of 2020, seeking to establish and regulate orphanages in the region. Specific plans for the orphans are rarely mentioned in politicians' election platforms. While orphans are not yet voters, they are our future. And just like Lama, all they want are basic needs and equal opportunity, just like the other kids. In Maguindanao, Carolyn Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
When we return, a low-pressure area brings massive flooding in parts of the Visayas and Mindanao, and the Philippines requires antigen testing for inbound travelers. Newsnight will be right back.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Massive flooding in parts of the Visayas and Mindanao brought by a low-pressure area. Classes and work suspended in Oras town in eastern Samar today because of the heavy downpour, while motorists traveling to Jipapa town are advised to take alternate routes to avoid the flooding. A bridge in San Bernardo town in Bukidnon also closed to motorists. Several areas were hit by floods in the province, forcing over 600 families to flee their homes. Yesterday, troops of the Philippine Army's 10th Infantry Division rescued affected residents in Trento town in Agusan del Sur. Pag-asa says the Visayas and Mindanao will continue to experience cloudy skies with scattered rain showers. Same forecast for Mimaropa, Bicol, and Quezon Province. Cagayan Valley, Apayao, Kalinga, Ifugao, Aurora, and a mountain province will have cloudy skies and rains, while partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rains will be felt in Ilocos, Abra, and Benguet. Pag-asa expects partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers here in Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon. The LPA was last spotted 180 kilometers east-northeast of Hinatuan, Surigao del Sur. The Weather Bureau also monitoring a tropical depression near Mindanao, which may enter the Philippine area of responsibility by Monday. Filipinos are bringing back pre-pandemic traditions, with travelers filling up airports again in time for the Holy Week. As Lois Calderon reports, things may finally be returning to the so-called old normal in the country's gateways.
Nadia becomes the country's busiest airport again, with passenger traffic almost returning to pre-pandemic level. Seats in waiting areas get filled, both with people and luggage. Queues are building up at check-in counters. Crowded boarding gates. Airport authorities estimate 27,000 people flying daily out of the city. That's 80% of the 33,800 for domestic departures logged on Palm Sunday of 2019. If you count the additional 36,000 flying in during Lent, pre-pandemic domestic traffic was up to 69,000 daily.
We're glad to note that there's an increase in volume, especially when the health protocols had been eased up. So what we're seeing starting from the Holy Week onwards is we're pretty much inching towards pre-pandemic volumes with a much further easing of LGU requirements. We are seeing at 100% already very soon on pre-pandemic levels. That is for domestic.
I was surprised na ganun kaagad nag-rebound yung local tourism natin. Marami tayong pasahero, especially actually yung sa Terminal 3 lang, pre-pandemic wise, we're almost 80%. During the pre-pandemic, we were able to cope with all the passengers that were using Terminal 3. So more so now, na medyo mababa pa ng mga 15-20% ang volume, kayang-kaya.
This young family is off to Boracay for a 4-day vacation with a grandma. People travel in large groups of 10s and 20s, office colleagues and friends.
Magbabakasyon lang po sa Boracay. Hanggang linggo po.
May family gathering. Tapos sinama na kami ng boss namin. Excited po.
Coffee shops and restaurants are back in business too. The Transport Department gave airport concessionaires free rent until June.
I am encouraging them to take advantage of that para ho naman makabawi po sila at sumigla ang ating paliparan.
Data from the Manila International Airport Authority show nearly 800,000 travelers flew in and out of the city to visit local tourist spots during Lenten season of 2019, while almost 1 million was logged in terms of international passenger volume. The busiest days for this airport during this time of the year are Palm Sunday, when travelers fly out of the city, and on Easter Sunday, when they fly back. Lois Calderon, CNN. Philippines.
More travelers from other countries are also expected to visit the Philippines. The government green-lights the use of rapid antigen tests as a requirement for inbound travelers. Testing should be done in an accredited facility or health facility in the country of origin. Authorities also instructed to accept only IATF-approved vaccination IDs. The RT-PCR test is still the gold standard for COVID-19 testing. Now, this is why the World Health Organization reminds countries to keep the guards up amid amid the looming recombinant forms of COVID-19. Those variants are XD, or the combination of Delta and Omicron, and XE, or the hybrid of two Omicron subvariants. The WHO reiterates recombinants are expected, but it is closely watching the new variants.
We need to continue to assess the public health risk which is associated with these recombinant variants, because they have the potential to provide us with a greater challenge, as they could be more severe. They could result in a recombinant variant which evades our use of vaccines and other measures. And so therefore, we need to be vigilant, we need to continue testing, and we need to continue to identify any unusual events, any surges as quickly as possible.
Current studies do not see the recombinants as more contagious than the parent Omicron variant. Now, millions of families suffered losses when COVID-19 struck, but it is a completely different story for some businesses. George Kivas tells us the pandemic gave them hope to carry on.
The province of Romblon takes pride of its marble products, or marmol, beautifully crafted by their skilled artisans. From the mines, these stones are brought to the shop, where they are cut and polished to perfection. But just like any other industry, it was also hit by the pandemic.
Maraming mga tao na natambay sa trabaho.
The light at the end of the tunnel came in a rather bizarre way. Thousands of deaths due to COVID-19 paved the way to keep their business afloat. Mayor Gard Montojo says the demand for marble urns and gravestones reached an unprecedented high, with thousands being shipped from their town weekly.
Ang order nun, pag namatay ka sa COVID, talagang ikikremate ka. So kailangan mo ng urn. Nung una, ayoko maniwala sa kanila. Sabi ko sa kanila, bigyan niyo ako ng sulat galing sa funeraria or ano kung sino nag-order sa inyo, then I will give you a go signal for you to work again for the manufacturing of urns.
Medyo natatakot din para mabili ang lapitay. Oo, pero walang magawa. Yan ang hanap buhay dito.
As the COVID-19 situation becomes more manageable, the demand for marble urns and gravestones gradually went down. But the interest in other marble products are slowly picking up, like in the souvenir shop in downtown Romblon.
Kasi sa akin, may online ako. Every day talaga, okay. Okay na siya.
But ultimately, they wish that tourists will start coming back so that small businesses and local industries can fully recover from pandemic losses. From Romblon, George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
In other news, Malacanang says the Department of Migrant Workers, which was created to tackle concerns of Filipino workers overseas, has yet to be constituted. But this early, a controversy is already hounding the agency. Details from Tristan Odalo.
A Senate leader cautioned Secretary Abdullah Mamao to go slow on the new Migrant Workers Department to avoid going against the law. Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon hits Mamao for his supposed attempt to disrupt the smooth transition of the agency and his wrong interpretation of the new law.
Mag-ingat po siya at pag pinilit niya, pwede siyang kasuhan ng usurpation of public functions. Kasong kriminal po yan. Hindi pwedeng lumagpas sa batas ang implementing rules and regulations. Kaya tawag yan implementing rules. Ini-implement mo kung ano yung batas. Wala pong kapangyarihan ang Secretary Mamao.
Drilon is also the author of the law creating the Migrant Workers Department. He says the election ban limits Mamao's power to transfer employees and officers to the agency.
Mali yung pagka-appoint sa kanya dyan. Kung mayroon kung may justification man, it is just to be a member of the transition committee. Wala po siyang kapangyarihan na gumawa ng sariling rules and regulations.
Mamao is asserting his authority and orders concerned agencies to submit to his jurisdiction. However, Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello and Executive Secretary Salvador Mejaldea are of the view that the new department is not yet constituted.
The Department of Labor is claiming that the ILAB, the polo offices, the repatriation center in the OWA, and that of the Maritime Polytechnic Institute are still part of the Department of Labor. That is their own choice. And we are here dealing with the law. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm sticking with the law. I will decide, I will act, and I will do anything that has something to do with the law.
Mamao has released implementing rules and regulations or IRR for the law, making things complicated. Some members of the transition committee say the document did not go through them. Sources in the DMW Transition Committee tell CNN Philippines Mamao's IRR faces constitutional and legal challenges. They add the Transition Committee is a collegial body and Mamao can go through the process alone. OFW advocate and founder of the Blas Oples Center, Susan Toots Oples, says services may suffer at the expense of disagreements among authorities.
It's going out of bounds. We are all very concerned. We are appalled by the lack of transparency in the signing of the IRR. We asked for a ceasefire dun sa battle of the memos and for the President or for the Executive Secretary to intervene.
Ople adds concerned groups have asked the Justice Department for a legal opinion on the matter. In an interview, Mamao said all his actions were in line with the law.
The OFW sector is caught in a bind over disagreements on an agency that's supposed to protect their welfare. Groups appeal to Malacanang to step in and resolve the matter immediately. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
CNN Philippines is reaching out to Migrant Workers Secretary Abdullah Mamao for his comment on the issue, but he has yet to reply. Coming up on Newsnight, from 50 aspiring queens, the number of Miss Universe Philippines contenders has been trimmed down to 32. Plus, more and more U.S. shows have been added for this K-pop roots tour. Find out why after the break.
SMC San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. We're getting closer to finding out who will wear the Miss Universe Philippines crown next. The top 32 finalists were just unveiled. Among them are pageant veterans like Miss World Philippines 2019, Michelle D, and Miss Earth Philippines 2018, Celeste Cortez. Coronation Night is set for April 30 at the Mall of Asia Arena. Tickets for the Los Angeles Encore concert of K-pop sensation Twice ran out in under 30 minutes. Because of this, another show was added. The girl group's 3 world tour dates now include May 14 and 15 at the Banc of California Stadium. Concerts here in the Philippines have yet to be announced. Twice recently made it to U.S. touring history as the only female K-pop artists to have 2 different arena tours in the country. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.